Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of You're More Than Your MS. I hope I was able to give you some fun things to binge watch while laid up and homebound like me. This past week, DC Comics released its newest movie, Justice League. So I thought I would review some of the DC movies leading up to the Justice League movie. First is Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. The world changed when mankind, the citizens of Metropolis, and the billionaire Bruce Wayne were witness to the awesome power of the Superman. Now, 2 years later, the love affair is seemingly ended when the Man of Steel becomes involved in complexities of international politics, with lives lost amidst terrorist rebels, as journalist Lois Lane attempts to clear his name. Senate hearings and the media compel Superman to work within the system. The Batman escalates his war on crime, seeking a means to end the potential threat of Superman, and Lex Luthor appears to be pulling strings behind the scenes. In the battle between Batman and Superman, I pick Wonder Woman for the win. It's not that the Caped Crusaders and the Man of Steel don't get in their licks in Zack Snyder's Freudian free-for-all between two mama's boys. Wait, have I said too much? The spoiler-sensitive diversity is ready to rain down hell on any critics who dare reveal a single plot twist in Batman vs. Superman's Dawn of Justice, a film that's filled to the bursting with them. It's a risk just to point out that Ben Affleck steps in for Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne or Batman, and that Henry Cavill is back as Clark Kent or Superman. So I'll keep this review aimed at what works and what doesn't, and steers clear of surprises in the script by David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio. Let's begin with Snyder, who starts at over the top and then rockets to the stratosphere too much, always. But when you're set up to the greatest gladiator match in the history of DC Comics, subtlety is not only not your weapon of choice. Snyder can't touch Christopher Nolan's artistry in the Dark Knight trilogy, but he's still a hell of a showman. Snyder tear ass through 2 hours and 31 minutes of head-spinning PG-13 mayhem. Snyder, the director of the reboot of Dawn of the Dead, uses Dawn of Justice to set up is a new era of Justice League epics, which means you'll be seeing cameos from Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa, The Flash, played by Ezra Miller, and Cyborg, played by Ray Fisher. But the focus here is on two big kahunas. Cavill still has the square-jawed heroism of the Son of Krypton down pat, maybe too pat. So the advantage goes to Affleck, who plays the disillusioned son of Gotham with a welcome streak of snarky humor. Playboy Bruce Wayne has butler Alfred, played by Jeremy Irons, in his corner. A Daily Planet reporter, Clark Kent, has his inept colleagues, and love interest Lois Lane, played by Amy Adams, on his side. Bruce and Clark meet at a reception hosted by Lex Luthor, a junior Joker maniacally played by Jesse Eisenberg as a spoiled brat with billions to fuel his deity complex. It's Lex who wants to set the two heroes at each other's throats, God versus mortal. I will cautiously point out that both Batman and Superman have mother issues, and that a U.S. Senator, played by Holly Hunter, is the catalyst for a declaration of war. It's the Doomsday Monster, partly made of kryptonite, who brings Superman down to human level for the big fight with the Bat. It's a thrill to see these two freaks go at it. Just know that they lock horns in a dizzy display of show-stopping special effects and explosive highlight in the entrance of Wonder Woman. And Gadot, a combat instructor in Israel Army, is a wonder indeed. A true warrior. Is she with you? Asks Superman. I thought she was with you, countered Batman. The kind of quippy repertoire bumps against the grain of a script that takes things very seriously, especially the notion of illegal aliens like Superman taking over the world and the Trump-like wall Batman would like to build around them. No matter, Snyder, juiced up by Hans Zimmer's caffeinated score, throws everything at the scene until resistance is futile. Better than Man of Steel, but below the high bar set by Nolan's Dark Knight. Dawn of Justice is still a colossus. The stuff that DC Comics dreams are made for, that kids in all of us who yearn to see Batman and Superman suit up and go in for the kill. Suck on that, Marvel. After this, can Justice League versus the Avengers be very far behind? The next movie I'm going to review for you is Suicide Squad. After the death of Superman, the leader of the secret agency, Amanda Waller, convinces the government to recruit supervillain imprisoned in Belle Reve to protect the world. She summons the hitman Deadshot, the Joker's girlfriend and former psychiatrist Harley Quinn, the pyrokinetic Diablo, the bank thief Captain Boomerang, the mutant killer Croc, the criminal Slingshot, and the Watch Enchantress, who possesses the former archaeologist June Moon, to form Task Force X. Waller also assigns the command of the team to Colonel Rick Flag, who is in love with June. To convince the group to obey orders, a nanite bomb is implanted in the neck of each member. When Enchantress releases her powerful brother, they besiege Midway City, turning the residents into an army of monsters and building a powerful weapon. Meanwhile, the Joker is plotting to plan a rescue his beloved Harley Quinn. There's both undeniable sincerity and an over-the-top punk rock vibe to the writer-director David Ayer's completely bonkers ode to supervillains, tapped to contribute to the greater good. It helps flesh out the comic book world of Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, plus makes a bunch of obscure outsiders just as engaging and fun to watch as that well-known Dark Knight. With powerful metahumans and vigilantes inhabiting Earth, the government needs a plan to deal with them. Enters the ruthless Amanda Waller, who has taken it upon herself to recruit Enchantress, an archaeologist possessed by an ancient witch, as the first member of Task Force X. Its modus operandi is to send its members on deadly missions, and if they don't come back, oh well. With shades of Guardians of the Galaxy and the original Ghostbusters, Suicide Squad takes its near-to-do-well, led by Assassin Deadshot, played by Will Smith, and the oddball bad girl Harley Quinn, from their Louisiana Supermax home to battling a magical enemy. Alliances are formed, bonds are shaken, and the group is constantly on the edge of implosion. Because of the size of the Ayers cast, some of the more interesting characters are shortened, especially Samurai Warrior Katana and Australian hoodlum Captain Boomerang, though the latter has a quick run-in with a superhero that knowing comics fan will adore. Deadshot is the movie's emotional heart, and it's Smith's best role in years. He gets to showcase some of Concussion's deep emotions, but with that old Independence Day swagger. Jay Hernandez similarly impresses as El Diablo, a fiery LA gangster leader with a horrific backstory. Harley, a psychiatrist turned unhinged mall with a undying love for the Joker, is finally Robbie's star-making turn, and Leto's weirdo take on the clown prince of crime is a far cry from the late Heath Ledger's, though it definitely works. A tattooed Tony Monta type, this Joker is a nightclub owner with a thing for bling and a psychopathic determination to find his main squeeze. His relatively brief screen time leaves you wanting more, and Leto and Robbie make a distinctively dynamic duo in their fleeting scenes together. Another relationship that's intriguing but ultimately overshadowed is that of squad leader Rick Flag and Enchantress' human alter ego. While their romance drives one of the many subplots, Diverging spends most of the film in freak mode, leaving Kinnaman as the guy keeping the fire burning. No matter the character, though, Ayers has a keen way of making you care for them, even the Joker. Like the Dirty Dozen for the Hot Topic generation, the team gets in-your-face introductions, and things just grow more mentally from there. But compared to its ilk, Suicide Squad is an excellent, quirky, proudly raised middle finger to the standard superhero movie establishment. The next movie I'm going to review for you is Wonder Woman. When Army pilot Steve Trevor crashes on the Warriors' secluded island paradise, disrupting the fictitiously all-female sanctuary of Themyscira, created by the gods of Olympus. Princess Diana of the immortal Amazon aids for his rescue and wins the decisive rights to escort him home, heading to an early 20th century London to stop the war she believes is influenced by the god Ares, leaving behind the only life she ever known and entering the cynical world of man. For the first time, torn between a mission to promote peace and her own warrior upbringing as a Wonder Woman, Diana must fight evil in a war to end all wars, while hoping to unlock the potential of a humanity she doesn't always understand. Ever since Christopher Nolan's last great Batman film, 2008's The Dark Knight, DC has been in a pretty brutal big screen slump. Watchmen, Johan Hex, Green Lantern, Suicide Squad, the various Superman movies. Some of these films have managed to make a nice chunk of change at the box office, but they're the kind of hits that exist more on a studio's balance sheet than in the hearts and minds of moviegoers. Unlike its crosstown rival, Marvel, DC has had a hard time finding the right mix of darkness and light, seriousness and humor, gravitas and fun. They just haven't been able to crack the magic nut. It would be insane to think that the suits at Warner Brothers, the custodian of the DC franchise, weren't getting twitchy and envious every time a new Marvel flick hits the theater. But now, with their latest superhero saga, they can finally stop chewing their cuticles, if there are any left. Wonder Woman is smart, slick, and satisfying in all the ways superhero films ought to be. How deliciously ironic that in a genre where the boys seem to have all the fun, a female hero and female director are the ones to show the fellows how it's done. Ever since her comic book debuted in 1941, William Moulton Marston's groundbreaking heroine has been ahead of her time, a girl power icon in a male fantasy universe that rarely had much use for powerful women, just damsels looking to be undistressed. But Wonder Woman always refused to play by those rules. A demigod warrior princess sculpted from the clay by her Amazonian mother, Queen Ibitalia. Wonder Woman was a distaff badass with the courage, superpowers, and gee-whiz budadas to match her male peers. The lasso of truth, indestructible golden bracelets, and even a sword that could bring down the gods. She used them all to shatter the superhero glass ceiling. That's the same protagonist we first met in Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, a rollicking origin story with a clear and distinct feminist message that never bludgeons you with its gender politics. It's far too assured and sly for that. The film opens on the island of Themyscira, an idyllic paradise with chalk white cliffs and tortoise water that was gifted to the Amazons by Zeus. Invisible to the rest of the world, the island is hidden by a protective atmospheric cloak. It's like the Bermuda Triangle if the Bermuda Triangle were inhabited solely by a race of she-warriors living in harmony and training in combat under Robin Wright. Zeus created the Amazons to put love back into mankind's heart and restore peace. But under Queen Epitalia there remained in hiding, practicing the ancient martial arts in strappy gladiator sandals and on horseback, while speaking in a thick Slavic goulash of accents that give you the impression that the Mascaria might just be located somewhere near Transylvania. Ippolitelia has a young daughter named Diana, a curious, rebellious, bullheaded little moppet eager to learn how to fight like her elders. She's not like the others, though. There's something special about her, a secret link to the gods with no one told her about. But as Diana grows up to become Wonder Woman, her gifts reveal itself, and just in the nick of time. When the plane of the American spy named Steve Trevor pierces the island's force field, whatsits, and crashes into the ocean, Diana dives in and saves him. He's the first man that she's ever laid eyes on, the first man that any of the Amazons have laid eyes on. All of them want him to leave, but Diana is curious, especially after he tells her about the horrific war that rages back in his world. It's 1918, and it's being called the War to End All Wars. Diana, raised on the Amazonian creed of peace and her people's duty to fight against Ares, the god of war, sees his war as her war. She has found her destiny. World War I and the Allies have been waiting for Wonder Woman. As Israel Godot, as Israel's actress with piercing dark eyes, is probably best known for playing Giselle in several of the Fast and Furious movies, but there was nothing in those installments that hinted at the undeniable star power she gives off as Wonder Woman. Granted, the Fast and Furious movies aren't exactly acting showcases, but still, her Diana is both awesomely fierce, and surprisingly funny, especially when she arrives in war-torn London with Trevor and gets her first taste of 20th century modernality. Whether she's reacting to the unfamiliar sights of automobiles or constricting early 20th century women's fashion, she takes it all in like a fish out of water. When she has her first taste of ice cream, she swoons and enthusiastically tells the salesman, "You should be very proud," as if he's performed some kind of miracle. Get it? Sells the innocence and humor in these moments every bit as convincingly as Daryl Hannah's in Splash. Her chemistry with Pine is just as unexpected and electric, catching him in the nude back in on Themyscira. She takes a peek at him in the buff and asks, "Would you say you are a typical example of your sex?" He replies, "I am above average." Screenwriter Ellen Heinberg deserves as much of the credit for their sparks-filled duet as the stars. As World War I seems to be winding down and an armistice is about to be signed, a holdout among the German high command, the evil General Ludendorff, is busy creating a poisonous biological superweapon to turn German defeat into victory. His chief chemist, a disfigured sadist named Dr. Maru, is a vision of villainy right out of the comic book nightmares, wearing a prosthetic faceplate that hides her hideous scars. Diana, Trevor, and his trio of mercenary pals race to the Berlin front to stop Ludendorff and Dr. Poison before it's too late. Some might wonder why a character who was first conceived in 1941 and who's finally being brought to the big screen in 2017 has been plopped into 1918, but I'd argue that Wonder Woman's time period is pretty clever stealth weapon to explore some of the movie's more progressive themes, not to mention the fact that it gives the film a retro cool charge reminiscent of Joe Johnston's Captain America's The First Avenger. We've grown so accustomed to seeing superheroes flash their powers on screen that it's refreshing to see people react with awe, like they're witnessing miracles. The miracle of the movie, or at least the fantastic first two-thirds of it, is that the audience feels that some novel rush as Diana deflects machine gunfire with her bracelets, flips army tanks with one hand, and whips German soldiers around like rag dolls with her luminescent lasso of truth. We feel like we're watching her feats with new eyes. The setting also helps to make the film's resident feminist subtext feel more organic and less forced, at a time when women were still without the right to vote and were subjugated to the position of being seen and not heard. The fearsome Diana becomes a spokeswoman in word and deed of resistance and empowerment. She refuses to be treated like a second-class citizen by politicians and generals. No one puts Wonder Woman in a corner. On the battlefield in Belgium, she displays a martial courage that her brothers in arms doesn't possess. She's completely fearless, not to mention a long way from Linda Carter. It's only in the movie's unnecessarily final half hour or so that Wonder Woman finally meets her match. The special effects imperatives of contemporary blockbusters, filmmakers, against which even the Germans on screen seem insignificant. When Diana realizes that the villains she's been chasing all this time is, in fact, not the end, but just the beginning of a line of villains to be throttled. Undoubt in sequence chapters, the movie turns into an eye-rolling digital smackdown with mirrors even every other late period DC movie smackdown. It would be nice one of these days if some heroic editor just lobbed off the last 30 minutes of all of these things. But it's hard to quibble about what's wrong with a movie that gets so much right, especially when it comes to Gadot's revolutionary portrayal of Wonder Woman. The wait is over, folks. The DC movie you've been waiting for is finally arrived. Well, my friends, that brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed everything and will get a chance to check out some of the things I reviewed for you. And I hope you will return for even more reviews next week. I would like to thank MS&Me Radio and my listeners for giving me the opportunity to share my passions with you. Good night, and always remember, you're more than your MS.